Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we're going to spend some time talking about artificial intelligence, talent acquisition, the candidate experience, and how all three of those things are sort of playing together. What's working now, what isn't working now, and a little bit about what the future has to hold. My name is Jeff Mills. I'm Director of Solution Marketing and Talent Acquisition for SAP SuccessFactors. And I'm joined, and I will let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Jeff. Hi, I'm Deepti Yenireddy, founder and CEO of MyLi. We are a recruiting technology company powered by AI. So to kick off with a few questions, Jeff, I have a question for you. You've been with SAP for over 5 years, working with numerous SuccessFactors customers. In that time, what changes have you seen in how companies approach talent acquisition?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things has been a fundamental shift moving away from requisition-centric recruiting practices and moving more toward what is the candidate experience. That's one of definitely the biggest areas. So understanding what is the impact of the decisions that talent acquisition organizations make, how that creates either a positive or negative candidate experience, and then starting to understand the underlying, I think, fact that candidates are customers and a bad candidate experience equals bad customer experience. There's actually been quite a bit of research done on this, and you can actually calculate what is the revenue loss or gain based off of a poor candidate experience. So that's been the biggest shift that I've seen, in addition to people wanting to look at automation and advanced technologies like some of the things we're going to talk about today. So,
Great.
I mean, on your side, what are some of the most important elements of candidate experience that you're seeing in the market from your customers and just in general?
Definitely. The three that really stand out for us are communication, process, and engagement. Candidates want to feel valued and be treated with basic courtesy. They want employers to respect their time and be transparent at the same time. So, more and more employers are starting to build their transformation initiatives around these core areas. So, coming to communication, it is important to treat the candidate employer interaction like just any business relationship. In fact, similar to a customer, as you mentioned. That means being responsive, open to any questions, and being in regular touch with candidates so they know exactly where they stand in every step of the process. Employers miss out on great candidates all the time because a competitor was just a little bit faster with their communication. The second aspect is process, and it's really helpful to have an established process for interviewing and hiring candidates. This process should not only satisfy your org's needs, but should also be easy enough for candidates to navigate. Processes create consistency, and with them, you significantly restrict the opportunities for recruiter bias or bandwidth constraints to creep in and impact hiring. This is incredibly beneficial for companies prioritizing diversity and inclusion initiatives as well. Lastly, engagement, which is the big one. You want to make sure candidates are as invested in you as you are in them. Getting a really promising candidate to buy into your work culture and values before you even bring them on board is definitely super, super helpful. Building your brand through consistent and thoughtful messaging can make them feel bought in to your organization prior to their day one. And that brings them off to an already fantastic start to make sure they join and are willing to stay as well. And of course, there's so much more to candidate experience that we could cover in this session, since every industry and profession has its nuances. But these big three are more or less applicable to everything we see.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree on that. I know from a personal experience, I had two job offers when I was joining SuccessFactors, and one came 2 days after the SuccessFactors one. So clearly, you know where my decision went. So that was a very true statement. So, uh, how would you say the companies are not delivering on those three elements, or not all of them necessarily, but at least how do you think that they're missing?
Definitely. Jeff, we remember very well you facilitated a session at Success Connect London last just about last month, where Philip Clark of Circo Group urged dogs to remember that talent acquisition involves three customers who deserve a positive experience: candidates, recruiters, and hiring managers. And this is something that we hear from all our customers at the same time as well. We believe that organizations lose track of the fact that most standout candidates aren't desperate to work for them. You've got to win them over, and this takes conscious effort. Just like you mentioned, even with you, and you've got to be consistent with it. When things go wrong, it can cause a domino effect. As I talked about previously, communication process and engagement require disciplined execution with the help of technology. And one of the biggest causes of companies not delivering on these elements is not keeping up with technology, either through a lack of bandwidth or due to resistance. Um, Employers, though, are slowly realizing the benefits of HR tech and how it can amplify the strengths of their human recruiters, but this change could definitely come faster. Whereas some others still fear the implications of AI because of something they've read or heard. Either way, adopting and implementing technology in a responsible manner is what will set an organization ahead of its competitors.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you find are some of the impacts of these negative experiences? Would you say?
It can be quite significant, and it goes a lot deeper than just missing out on a great candidate. Firstly, of course, conversion. The first thing that it impacts is your time to hire and conversion. After a bad interview experience, candidates might simply reject your offer, or they might accept it as a backup plan but not show up for day one. Employer brand is the second one, which is very concerning, given how word of mouth can catalyze harm to your employer brand. Most people who have a bad candidate experience will tell others about it. And if you have consistently poor experience, most people are going to be talking about it. And it's going to be more and more difficult to find people willing to interview with your company as the stock spread. It also affects retention, because you see that some of the people who are already working for you will also learn about this through their friends, contacts, and reviews, and this will harm your retention as well. Apply does identify and solve these problems before they become severe. And one of our features is our candidate experience scorecard, which is a survey that ascertains how candidates perceived various different aspects in their time in the pipeline.
And the intervention between man and technology and man. And I think that's more of where the uncertainty and fear comes from is how do we use it to drive meaningful change while not removing the human element of, especially within talent acquisition, of something that is a very personal uh, matter and someone does take extremely personally. So that's, I mean, I'd say that's kind of what I'm seeing out there. So, I mean, with that, talking about the interplay, what do you think is the role of technology and how those two interact with one another? What's an effective handoff?
That's $1 million question, and an answer to perfect user experience with AI. But I believe that the interplay between machine and human should be on the basis of automation and control. Automation when you want it, and control when you need it. This builds trust and transparency with any technology, at the same time providing infinite bandwidth to achieve the outcomes you want. So, our technology, Maya picks up on the language patterns we use and learns to communicate almost like a human. And this lets it respond to candidate questions and emails, only escalating to a human recruiter if it can't understand something. It also provides unique transparency into the automated process and decisions its technology is making, and lets recruiters take control as they need to. So what happens is, the recruiters now have the freedom to prep candidates and make sure they have a great experience with a peace of mind. It gives them also the bandwidth they need to build relationships and reconnect with existing ones, to woo great on-site candidates and really sell them on the job at the last mile. In the end, it's no different than a team of people dividing tasks that play into each other's strengths and trust each other, just that one of them happens to be a computer. So that's the way we believe and envision it, that this handoff has to be seamless. that is built on trust and transparency.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So now, that's sort of the interplay between person and technology, but with machine learning, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, we're sort of creating a human, so to speak, out of a robot. But how do we continue to humanize what is the very emotional moments within the talent acquisition process, from first time you talk to a recruiter to, let's say, first day, while leveraging all of the new technology and the approach that it brings?
Yeah, there's a real need to be sensitive during these emotional moments. Candidate asking to reschedule due to an illness or family emergency isn't something you want to respond with a mechanical or formulaic answer. And this is actually a pretty big priority for us. We are working on incorporating technology, process, and change management, as well as messaging, into our solution to recognize and handle these situations very delicately and create a positive sentiment in the candidate's mind. So, on the technology side, we are working on several cutting edge initiatives to perfectly accurately capture the right context and sentiment, including neural belief tracking, which is a relatively new concept even in the AI space. On the process and change management side, we are lucky to be partners with customers who are ready to work with us. And we work exhaustively with them on making the human machine combined experience optimal for the candidate by defining situations for escalating to a human recruiter when greater empathy and understanding are called for, such as when someone is ill or someone has gone through an accident and so on. Lastly, messaging. Every touch point is a great way to build a great relationship with a candidate, and that can be achieved with thoughtfully designed messaging and interactions. And we have seen our customers do this really well. For example, including the information of a human contact for the candidate to make a choice to contact as they need to in every form of communication. This shows that you are present and will go out of your way to help any candidate have the perfect experience. Furthermore, this need for humanization reinforces our belief that the future will belong to hybrid workforces, humans and machines working together and complementing each other.
Yeah, we actually have a customer that refers to them as cobots. So they help them perform their job in tandem in a manufacturing setting. So I would wholeheartedly agree with that. So with that, do you think candidates realize that they're engaging with robots oftentimes through your technology? Are there concerns that come up through this interaction? And I guess kind of at the bottom line, like, what are the dangers of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff, and it can be a sensitive topic depending on your industry or profession, especially companies with legal, confidential, or ethical concerns are the ones that are most concerned. This is one area where we defer to the better judgment of our customers. They know their businesses best. And if they want to reveal that Maya is a machine before the interview process begins, our solution lets them build that disclaimer. But so far, we haven't seen a single instance of a candidate being upset or offended at not knowing they were speaking to a machine. We, however, have had several customers tell us that on site candidates have asked to meet and thank the coordinator who set up their interview, only to be pleasantly surprised that it was a machine.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the benefits to an organization? Preferably measurable, but what are those? What are those benefits and differences that they're going to see by implementing something like this?
Definitely. In terms of measurable gains, we've noticed averages of 50% shorter time to hire due to shorter candidate pipeline times. When you respond very quickly to candidates, keep track of them during the interview process, immediately move them from stage to stage, that pushes the process to optimal efficiency, and hence you see that shorter time to hire. We also see 40% increase in conversion because candidates, of course, love the speedy response as well as the timeliness and the responsiveness. Interviews get scheduled 5 times faster, and there are over 30% efficiency gains for the entire recruiting team, because you're automating one of the biggest and most painful processes within an interview process. Customers with higher adoption rates also tend to see greater successes with these returns. But the value of our product like ours is richer than just numbers and data. One of the biggest advantages of smart tech for TA is how much more positive interactions can be between recruiters and candidates, and how much more positive the employer brand becomes as a result. This goodwill generally, is spreads around very, very quickly, and through social media these days, personal networks as well, and it helps companies go from just being employers to highly sought after workplaces. Jeff, on that note, I have a question for you. In your opinion, over the next 3 to 5 years, which area or areas of talent acquisition will yield the greatest demand for new tech, or for solution providers, the greatest opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I get all the time, right? Whether it's going to be roadmap or just what does the future hold and kind of the direction. I think there's a few different things. One is talent acquisition really has to be part of the overall life cycle that exists within an employee's journey. So, what I mean by that is we keep looking at what is a candidate's likelihood to succeed without necessarily looking at what are the downstream markers of a successful employee, being able to leverage those and say, okay, we need to find similar candidates to this that may share similar background, skills, or just some level of attribute that you can start relating to it. And I think that that's a prime opportunity for machine learning and artificial intelligence to help identify those things that may be very difficult to uncover because of the sheer volume of data sets that we're looking at. And with that, I think there's three kind of key things that you can do with that information as well as other standard talent acquisition. One is create a much more individualistic scenario for the person. So, marketing groups have been oftentimes trying to get into personalization. It's a very challenging and difficult thing to run effectively. We get asked about it quite a bit of like, how do we do personalization? And I think people don't understand that, well, if you have 6 different segments and you have 20 elements on a career site, you now have 120 elements that you have to create to have one experience that is focused on personalization. So one is leveraging machine learning to be able to help organize that process to create something that is actually repeatable that you can maintain, but creating a much more individualistic experience for that person. So if they text, realizing the text is the way to go. If they email, at a core basic level. The next one is providing greater visibility within the recruiting organization. So what are the things that we should be doing? How do we take action now so we can be much more proactive? And that's not just from a, hey, we might have these 6 requisitions that we need to open next quarter, or these 600 requisitions we need to open next quarter. But we see that these 32 candidates are engaged right now. How do we start bringing them into the organization today, or how do we leverage on that hot activity, so to speak, and servicing that? So like, what needs to happen? And then the last one is creating overall efficiencies. That's looking at ways that you can do things like continued automation, but in a way that's helpful, removing those low level tasks. How do you start automating more of the offer process, the handoff between recruiting and onboarding, and ultimately into development, creating more consistency that there it's efficient not just for the recruiter and for the HR admin, but it's very efficient for the candidate. And they've provided a ton of data and information through the process. So that's one of the ways of saying, okay, how do we leverage that to in the employee profile or the onboarding process to create ultimately what is a seamless experience. So those are some of the major things I'd say, and also things that we're working toward and how we can make that better. So
Great. That's super insightful and helpful. I think I really identify with the individualization and personalization. We see a lot of that as well on our end with our customers wanting more and more of that. So thank you so much for answering that, Jeff.
yeah, any final parting words that you have that you would like to share on this?
It's been great chatting with you, and I think we are definitely realizing and aware of the experience economy that that we are getting into in this in this next segment of recruiting and talent acquisition. And we are pretty excited about the journey and where technology is taking us. And we hope that we are able to help the industry as many customers with our AI technology as well. What about you, Jeff? Any parting thoughts?
The only real parting thought that I have is look at your candidate satisfaction scores before you make major wholesale changes. Create a benchmark. Understand what are you doing well now, because I'm willing to bet you if some of your customers had taken note of like interview satisfaction on Glassdoor prior to implementing your technology versus after, I have a feeling they'd see some pretty positive change there. And we can never discount the fact that if you want to prove what you're doing is working and make improvements, create a benchmark. Best advice I can say, so you at least have something to work off of. So, well,
Yeah,
thank you
that's super
very much
helpful.
for your time. Yeah, and I really look forward to continuing this conversation, and maybe we can get another one of these.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Talk to you soon.